We have already been in contact with methods since video number 2 about variables, in which I overviewed the base structure of a C# script, and since then all the code that we have typed has been part of a method named start. Now you can consider a method as a block of code that will only be executed if it is called by your program. This also means that if you have structured your code into methods instead of just dumping it like we have been doing till now, then we can reuse the same code again and again in multiple places without having to type it multiple times or copying and pasting it in multiple locations. This will also make your code much more manageable, as there will be tons of places where you would be reusing code blocks that you have decided to structure into a method. So to reaffirm, what I'm saying is that methods are self-contained block of codes that perform a certain task, and they allow you to reuse the block of code in your program as you see fit. Now let's go over the syntax for creating a method. The syntax can be divided into 5 sections. First section is the optional access and type modifiers. Here you can type an access modifier to define the scope of your method, and after that add a type modifier or multiple type modifiers like static or abstract when you need them. Next is the return type of the method, which is you stating that after the code block inside the method is executed, what kind of data are you sending back to the line from which this method was called. This return type can be a value or variable of any data type in C#. It can also be an array, a collection, or an object of any kind. After that, we have the name of the method and the 2 parentheses, which tells the compiler that we are writing a method. And inside the parentheses, we can either not type anything, or you can type one or more parameters that you think you will need for the code block inside the curly braces to work correctly. If you write a method with a parameter inside it, you are basically saying that you will be passing a data of X data type with name Y when you call this method from anywhere. If you have stated when defining the method that you need 2 parameters, then you need to fulfill those 2 parameters with an argument each when and where this method is called. And finally, the last section is the code block and the return type that will be typed inside it. This return statement is you returning back a value or a variable of the defined return type of this method to the line from which this method was called. That is, if you set the return type to string array, then you will be sending back a string array. Another point I need to mention is that if you want to make a method that will return nothing, then you can use the void keyword as the return type of that method. I know some of you might be getting a bit confused right about now, but just stick around and I assure you before this video ends, you will have a thorough understanding about the basics of method. Now let's go to the Arpeggio Analogy so that I can give you some context about how you should think about methods when you are developing a game. Think about the main character in your game and the various actions he or she can perform, like running, jumping, attacking using different weapons, talking to NPCs, climbing buildings, diving underwater, driving a vehicle, and whatnot. All these actions are pretty common in an open world RPG game, and what we can do when we are coding these actions is to divide its execution into one or more methods. So let's say we are writing a script named player movement, which will allow the player to control the main character. Now the script will contain all the methods which facilitates the movement of our main character in the 2D or 3D world, like a method that will set the default values for the necessary variables, another method that will contain the code that will change the transform and rotation of the main character in the 2D or 3D world when the player is moving the joystick or pressing WASD key on the keyboard, or maybe if it's a click to move sort of game, then this method will register the mouse clicks. Then we have another method that will toggle between crouching, walking and running when certain key or combination of keys are pressed. After that, various methods which will allow the main character to jump, double jump and roll. You will also have methods that will help you to control your state machines for animating your main character, like animating the main character's walk cycle, jumping animations and rolling animations and all those things. Now, how we are structuring this method to get the desired outcome, that is, whether you have separate methods for each action or in some way you are bundling a couple of them inside the same method, is on you, the programmer, to decide. And as you keep on working with Unity, you will slowly train your senses about which of the two you should be selecting based on what you are trying to accomplish. Let's move on from coding player movement and think about the dialog system in your game. Now let's code a method that will allow your player to go to the NPC and press X on the keyboard to start a dialog. To do this, what we need to do first is declare a variable named _within_range and set it to true. After that, let's declare a method named startDialog like public void startDialog. And then inside the curly braces debug.log, npc says :: the demons are attacking the north gate. Now with that, we have successfully created a method that will not return anything and does not have any parameters defined for it. So what we need to do next is go to the update method and create an if statement with a compound condition, with the first condition being input.getKeyDown and in the parentheses keycode.x. After that, we have the logical AND operator, and then the second condition being _within_range equal to true. What this will do is, based on where you have written this code, if the compound condition returns true, then on the frame that you will release X, after pressing it on the keyboard, it will execute the code block inside the curly braces. Now inside the curly braces, let's make a call to our method by typing startDialog, opening parentheses, closing parentheses, semicolon. And that's it. With that, we have created a method and called it in the update method. Now, there is a reason why we are using the update method instead of the start method here. But again, for this video, don't think about it. There will be a video on a later date that will explain everything regarding the important built-in methods in Unity. Now let's go to Unity and check the logs. As you can see, after we pressed play, no logs appeared inside the console. Now let's press X and bam, NPC says the demons are attacking the north gate. Now let's try pressing any other keys. And as you can see, nothing happens. Now let's press X again. And bam, the log printed again. Now with that done, what we'll do next is create a scenario where the NPC will give different replies based on if the player trades an item for the information that the NPC has or not. So let's get this done by first declaring a string variable named _traded item. But for now, let's not set its value and let it be null. After that, declare another method with the same name as the previous method, but this time with a parameter inside it. The first start method that we created does not take a parameter, while this method will take an item name as parameter. To do this, we have to type the data type of the parameter first, that is, what sort of data you will need to store the item name, that is, string. And then we'll type the name of the variable. This can be anything that you want, but I'm naming it as item name. And that's it. So defining a parameter is you basically creating a variable that will be local to the method and will allow you to pass some data inside the method when you make a call to the method. Now inside the method, let's debug.log. NPC says : oh, this seems to be plus item name. And then another debug.log saying: you seem to understand the rules of the street, huh? The north gate has already fallen and the demons will be attacking the old city center soon. Now inside the update method, where we have called the parameterless startDialog, let's remove it and in its place create an if statement with the condition being _traded item equal to null, and then an else if block with the condition being _traded item is not equal to null. Now inside the first block, call the parameterless startDialog, and inside the else if block, call the startDialog with the item parameter by passing _traded item variable as the argument for item name parameter that we defined when creating this method. And that's it. In this piece of code, multiple methods have the same name, And you can do this as long as the number of parameters and/or the data type of the parameters are different. In technical terms, this is what we call method overloading. Now, when we go to Unity to check the logs, it should still execute the parameterless method as we have not set a value for underscore traded item. So let's go to Unity and check the logs. As you can see, it still printed the debug.log within the parameterless start dialog method. Now going back to the code, let's set the value for underscore traded item to silver spear and go back to Unity and check the logs. As you can see, it shows the logs inside the new method, and we can also see the argument, that is silver spear, was passed correctly for the parameter item name that we had defined for this method. With that, I think that I've covered most of the basic things regarding methods. Now there are still more things that needs to be covered regarding methods, but as the video is already pretty long, I'll be covering those topics in the next video. Well, that does it for today's video. If you like the content, I hope that you'll subscribe to the channel. Do comment below if you have any doubts or if you just want to share your thoughts. And as always, if you see someone struggling down in the comment section, do try and help them. Goodbye for now. This is your host VP signing off.